Krishna, dear devotees, and with pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisances. So we'll start chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita today, the Purushottam Yoga, or the Yoga of Supreme Person. So before we start, let's recite some prayers to invoke auspiciousness, to get blessings of Prabhupada and various other acharyas who have given this knowledge to us in a very simplified manner in simple English, so that we are able to now read and share with each other. This is all their mercy. So say a prayer of gratitude to them and take their blessings before discussing this knowledge. Hari Bol. ॐ
ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपं कदा ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरू श्रीयुतपद्गुरुं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च प्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथां सुतं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं
राधा कृष्ण पादा
सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे
कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते
जगत्पते
गोपेश गोपिका
गोपेश
कांता राधा कांता
राधाकान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी नमामि प्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः।
जय श्री कृष्ण
जय श्री कृष्ण
प्रभु
चैतन्य
नित्यानंद
अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंदा।
हरे कृष्णा
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
नमो
मूकं करोति
विष्णुपादाय
कृष्णपृष्ठाय
कृष्णपृष्ठाय
भूतले श्रीमते
वेदांत
भक्तिवेदान्त
स्वामी
स्वामी नामिने।
नमस्ते
नमस्ते
सरस्वती
सरस्वती देवे
गौरवाणी
गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे
प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा
निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश धारिणे।
मुखं करोति
मूकं करोति
वाचालं
वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदीनतारिणं। परमानन्दमाधवं कृष्णचैतन्य ईश्वरं गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय
कृष्णाय
तदालये कृष्णाय
कृष्णभक्ताय
कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय
नमो
नमो
नमः।
नमः। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Thank you everyone for reciting the prayers. So we'll start chapter 15. Before starting, this is the verse that is said. I'll just say this verse and then we'll all recite the verses, all the verses together. This chapter is called Purushottam Yoga, or the Yoga of Supreme Person. We have recited this chapter in the past during Purushottam month, if you remember. I think Purushottam Mass came in 2020. 2020, I think. That's when we recited this chapter many times. Almost every class we were reciting. It is very short chapter. It is only 20 verses, and it is actually very beautiful. And I
Was it
want.
2019? Anyways, I'll check. I think 2019.
Okay. And if you read it in flow, which we'll try to read it in one flow together, like the whole translations and the whole recitation, it is very clear. Krishna's teachings become very clear because in this chapter, he is very clear about who Jiva is, who Bhagwan is, what is material world, what is spiritual world, how a Jiva can get to the Bhagwan or to the spiritual world, what is the process, and why it is important to come there. So in very short chapter, he has given us all this knowledge in a very concise fashion. So this chapter is actually very important, and a lot of devotees that are lovers of Bhagavad Gita, they actually even memorize this chapter completely, the full 20 verses. And some of you have probably already memorized the 4 or 5 verses of this. I'll just share the important verses. You can mark those if you want to memorize. So verse number 1, 5, 6, 7, and 15. These 5 verses are very important. 1, 5, 6, 7, and 15. So, and they are very commonly quoted in various lectures and various situations when you're trying to preach this philosophy. These verses are very important to understand. So those are the important verses. Let's say, let me say this mantra. If you want, I can share it on the screen. Okay, yes, here. Om Shri Paramatmane Namah At Srimad Bhagavad Gita At Panchadasham Adhyaya Purushottam Yoga. Let's start the recitation of all the verses. And, yes.
Was this the mantra the month that you just recited for prayer for the Bhagavad Gita before reading it?
Yeah, I mean, we recite this verse before starting a particular chapter, like which chapter we're reciting. You say the number and the name of that chapter in this verse. And then there is one that we say at the end of each chapter also. Okay, I am running into a little problem. Yeah, you don't have to say these. We don't always say these, but if you are able to, please say those verses, say those prayers before and after. Let's okay. So this is. Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, but I don't see the verses. We just see the translations.
The right page. How about this? This is the verses you see?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All
Make
right.
it a little more bigger.
Yes. So let's all recite together. Starting from 15th.1. Shri Bhagavan. Huh? What are you saying?
You want to share the meter we are going to recite in?
Yes. Would you like to say it, Nirbhay Prabhu?
So usually when we
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Usually when we are reciting the chapter, we do it in a different, like a faster meter than the usual. I don't know if I remember it or not. Shri Bhagwan Vacha Udramulam.
I can play the meter, Nirbhay Prabhu. This is Radha Gopinath Prabhu's meter. I'll play some other. It's like this.
Yes.
Yeah. So like
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's try.
You can't see the screen anymore. Yeah. Okay, let's go.
15.1. Everybody together.
Shri Bhagwan Vacha Chandasmi Yasya Parna Dastam Veda Savedave
Adhaschodvam
Tastasya Shakha
Prabhita Vishyapravada
Adashtamulani Anushandani Dharmavardhini Manushya Loke
Narupam
Ashleya Tathopsatye Nanto Nachadir Pratistha Ashwatthamena Suvridamulam Ashanga Shastra Cha
ततः पदं
पदं
तत्परिं
परिमार्गिता
गच्छाम्यहम्
वयम्
यस्मिन्
यस्मिन्
गता
गता
न
न
निवर्तन्ति
निवर्तन्ति
भूया
भूयात्
भूयात्
तमेव
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 पुरुषं
पुरुषं
प्रपद्ये
प्रपद्ये यथा
यथा
प्रवृत्ति
प्रवृत्ति
प्रसृता
प्रस्तुता
पुराणे
पुराणे निर्माण
निर्मानमोहाजितसङ्गदोषा
अध्यात्मनित्या
अध्यात्मनित्य
विनिवृत्तकामा
विनिवृत्तकामा द्वन्द्वे
वन्दे विमुक्ता
विमुक्तास्तुतयोर्मध्ये
सुखदुःखसङ्गे गच्छन्ति
गच्छन्ति मूढा
पदमव्ययम् तदा भाष्यते
नातद्भाष्यते
सूर्यो न शशाङ्को
नाशशाङ्को
न
न
पावकः
पावकः
यद्गत्वा
यद्गत्वा
न
न
निवर्तन्ते
निवर्तन्ते
तद्धामा परमं
परमं
मम
मम
ममेवांशो
ममेवांशो
जीवलोके
जीवलोके
लोके
जीवभूतः
जीवभूता
सनातनः
सनातनः
मनसस्तानि
मनसस्तानीन्द्रियाणि
इन्द्रियाणि
प्रकृतिस्थानि
प्रकृतिस्थानि
कर्षति
कर्षति
शरीरं
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 यद्भाति
यद्भाति
यच्च
यच्चापि
परमात्ति
परमोत्कर्षवः
परः
गृह्यति
गृहीतावतानि
सम्यक्
संयाति
सन्ति
वायुर्गन्धादिवस्य
पश्चात् श्रोत्रं
श्रोत्रं
चक्षुस्पर्शनं च
चक्षुस्पर्शनं च
रसनं
सङ्ग्रामेव
च
ग्रहणमेव च
अधिष्ठाय
अधिष्ठाय
मनसाचार्यं
मनश्चायं
विषयानुपसेवते
विषयानुपसेवते
उत्क्रामन्तं
उत्क्रामन्तं
सुखं
वापि
वापि
वापि भुञ्जनं वा
भुञ्जानं वा गुणान्वितं
विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति
विमूढाननुपश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
ज्ञानचक्षुषः
ज्ञानचक्षुषः
यतन्तो यो
यतन्तो
ते
योगिनश्चैनं
यज्ञश्चैनं
पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति
यात्मानमवस्थितम्
आत्मनमवस्थितं यतन्तोऽपि
यतन्तोऽपि
अकृत्स्नमनो
अकृत्स्नो नैनं
नैनं पश्यन्ति
पश्यन्ति अचेतसः
अचेतसः
यद्
यदादित्यगतं तेजो
जगद्भाषते
जगद्भाष्यतेऽखिलम्
किलम्
यच्च
यच्चन्द्रमासि
चन्द्रांसि
यच्चग्नौ
यच्चग्नो
तत्तेजो
तत्तेजो विद्धि
विधिमामकम्
मामकम् गामाविश्य च
गामविश्य च
भूतानि
भूतानि
धारामि अहम्
धराम्यहम्
ओजसा
ओजसा
पुष्णामि
पुष्णामि
औषधि
औषधीः
सर्वा
सर्वः
सोमो
सोमो
भूत्वा रसात्मकः
भूत्वात्मकः
अहं
अहं
वैश्वनरो
वैष्णवो
भूत्वा
भूत्वा
प्राणिनां
प्राणिनां
देहम्
देहम् आश्रितः
आश्रितः
प्राणपानसमायुक्तो
समयोयुक्तः
स्वामी अनं चतुर्विधम्
चतुर्विधम्
सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि
सर्वस्याहं
सन्निविष्टो
हृदि सन्निविष्टो
अत स्मृति ज्ञानयोगं च वेदेश सर्वैरहं वेदज्ञो
वेदविदो
वेदान्तवेदविदेवाचाहम् द्वाविधपुरुषो
लोके
पुरुषा लोके
क्षर एव च
अक्षर एव च
सर्वाणि भूतानि
भूतानि
स्वस्वोत्तरामुच्यते
कूटस्थोच्यते
उत्तम
उत्तम
पुरुषस्य
पुरुषस्य अन्या परमात्मेति
परमात्मेति भारतः
भारतः यो
यो
लोकत्रयम्
लोकत्रयम्
आविश्य
आविश्य
बिभर्ति
बिभर्त्य
अव्यय
व्यय
ईश्वरः
ईश्वरः
यस्माक्षरम् अतीतो
यस्माक्षरम् अतीतो
अहराद्
जरादपि
अतीतोऽहम्
अहरादपि चोत्तमः
अतोऽस्मि
तोऽस्मि
अतोऽस्मि
वेदे च
लोके
लोकवेदे च
प्रथितः
प्रथितः
पुरुषोत्तमः
यो मामेव
एवम् अविदो
असम्मूढो
जानाति
पुरुषोत्तमम्
पुरुषोत्तमम्
स
स सर्वविद्
सर्वविद्
भजति
भजति माम्
सर्वभावेन भारत
इति
इति गुहितं
शास्त्रम्
शास्त्रम् इदम् उक्तं मया नघ एतद्
एतत्
बुद्ध्वा
बुद्धिमान्
बुद्धिमान् च कृताकृत्यश्च
कृतकृत्यश्च
भारत
भारत
Om Tat.
Then you recite the last verse is this one. No, not the last verse, but this verse.
Om Tat
Om
Shri
Tat
Iti
Sri
Srimad
Bhagavad
Bhagavad Gita
Gita
Supaniषत्सु
Upanishatu
Brahma
Brahma
Vidyayam
Yoga
Yoga Shastre
Shastre Sri
Sri Krishna
Krishna
Arjun
Arjuna
Sambade
Sambade
Vibhuti Yoga
Purushottam
Dasham
Yoga
Adhyaya.
Pacham Ek Pachdam Adhyaya Pacham.
Sorry, this was from the 10th chapter. You did.
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
I read it and I was like, oh, that's 10.
Okay. Whoa. Thank you, everybody, for reciting such powerful, energy you feel when you're reciting Bhagavad Gita chapters. So this is one of the things that somebody, if is inspired, can. I'm not able to, but I know there are better people here that can do it if possible. Recite one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day. I know our Guru Maharaj Visheshika Prabhu, he recites Bhagavad Gita one chapter a day. This is his instruction, to recite one chapter of Bhagavad Gita every day. Any chapter you pick, and you can keep going one after another and then finish and then start again. Also on Ekadashi, some people recite full Bhagavad Gita, and especially the very beneficial days that come, like Madhav Tithis, like Janmashtami is coming now. So if you feel inspired, we can all join together to just recite the whole Bhagavad Gita that day. So reciting Bhagavad Gita, this is Krishna's Vani. This is Purushottam, the Supreme Person's Vani. This is not any mundane person. This is not reading a book, a novel, mundane literature, a newspaper or something. This is Ved Vakya, this is eternal knowledge, right? And so if we recite these mantras, the same language that Krishna spoke, it is very dear to Krishna. We can please him. We show him our effort that, we are trying to come to you. We're trying to reach you. Even though we may not understand this knowledge or this language very nicely, we are making a lot of mistakes. We are pronouncing it improperly. Our grammar is not right. Understanding is not correct. Realization is not correct. Application is not correct. But that's okay. We still want to try. And this shows an effort, especially on those days when Krishna is extremely merciful, like Janmashtami, Radhashtami, Kadashis, Madhav Tithis. You can make a point to just recite one chapter of Bhagavad Gita, full Bhagavad Gita if you are free that day. Anything like this. Just some suggestions, but these things can be done. Okay, so let's now read all the translations in a flow. We have 20 verses. How many people are we? 15? Maybe do one each for now and then we'll repeat. Is that okay, or is one too less? If you want to get full import, maybe just the kids can read two each. Either way is fine. Okay, let's just do one each. Is that okay? So on my screen, we start with Nana Prabhu. Nana Prabhu, I'll open the translations. So we'll get rid of everything else. And this, for those that don't know, Rekha Mataji, maybe Hema Mataji also. This is Veda base. This is a collection of very important Vedic literatures. We have Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Sri Shoknishad, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and many other books that were translated by, written by Prabhupada. Mahabharata is also there, written by one of the disciples of Prabhupada. So in this way, many books are there, and you can change some settings to just get the translations only. Like when you're reciting the whole Bhagavad Gita, you can get the whole Bhagavad Gita here, and without the translation, then Prabhupada just get the Devanagari if you want. So like this, you can make these adjustments. Okay, let's start. Nana Prabhu, would you be able to start? And then we'll go maybe Nana Prabhu, and then Ravi Prabhu, Vaidahi, Agni, Sheetal Mataji, Anita Mataji, in that order. Everybody speaking one after another. Yes, Prabhuji.
Shall I start, madam?
Yes, Prabhuji, please.
Yes, madam. The chapter 15, the Yoga of Supreme Person, the Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Lord said, there is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are Vedic hands. One who knows the tree is the knower of the Vedas. Hare Krishna.
Yes, please keep
Next
going.
to Hare Krishna. Next to the branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruitive action of human society. Haribol.
Text 3 and 4. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead from whom everything began and from everything has extended since time immemorial.
Hare Krishna, text 5. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, text 6. That supreme abode of mind is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Hare Krishna. Bhakti, can you scroll down, please? Hare Krishna. The living in this condition world are not many
I can't hear
Hare
anything.
Krishna, we can't hear. Be louder or maybe come closer to the computer.
Hare Krishna. The no fragment. Due to conditioned life, pairs try to improve how the six senses, which include the
Let me read it again. It was very muffled. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind.
See in the material world, grace is determined from one to two. As the air carries aromas, thus heats one kind of body and then with another.
माता जी थोड़ा सा muffled सा आवाज आ रहा था. Maybe you can read it one more time.
text 8. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Would Hema Mataji, Sunny Prabhu, Rekha Mataji, Raina, please take turns? Thank you. Please start. Whoever is available. Raina, you want to start?
Hare Krishna, text 9. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
Okay.
The foolish cannot,
Yes, go ahead, Sanipul.
the foolish cannot understand entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one who has come in knowledge can see Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Nirbhay Prabhu, Rekha Mataji, you want to read?
Sure. Text 11. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try.
Okay. Let's go ahead, Mataji. Rekha Mataji. You're mute.
Hold on, I lost it. Splendor of the moon, the splendor of fire are also from me.
Mataji, we lost you for a few minutes. So, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me. Okay, let's start again. Nana Prabhu and Ravi Prabhu and same cycle again. Ravi Prabhu, you want to start?
Text 13. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to the all vegetables. Revolve.
Text 14. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff.
Here comes very important verse.
15. In everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
16. There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible.
Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the 3 worlds is maintaining them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Because I am beyond the one and follow, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that supreme.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is in the middle of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotion service to me, O Son of God.
We both. Nima, you didn't get to read. Would you like to read this one?
Yes. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Haribol.
Haribol. So, this is our chapter, the whole chapter that we read today. I was thinking to try a different strategy this time and to quickly take the whole chapter in next 15, 20, 30 minutes if possible, and give the flow of the whole chapter, because I think that would make more impact. And then in the later sessions, we can take each verse more detailed, in depth, if need be. But I just wanted to give a little bit more overview of this chapter, what this chapter is talking about. So, like we decide, this chapter's name is Purushottam Yoga, the Supreme Person. So Krishna will ultimately try to tell you in this chapter that how this material world, what is the nature of this material world, and how it is very uh, fallen condition, it is very miserable condition, whereas the eternal abode, which is the goal of this human life, and he, the supreme person that resides in this eternal abode, is the supreme situation, is the best possible situation for a jiva. Okay, so that is why this is called yoga of supreme person, because he gives us the qualities of himself and of his abode and the problems of this material world. So basically, he tries to create a dissociation in our head from this material world. He tries to detach us from this material world. Okay. In last chapter, chapter 14, we talked about the three modes of material nature, right? How they bind us to this material world, how they are like ropes and they are controlling us like puppets, right? The jiva is being controlled by the three modes in this material world. We are bound here, right? Now he tells us that this material world is also, in the first two verses, he says, this material world is also like a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. Okay, so think about it like this. He gives a very beautiful analogy that there is a tree and there is a river. The tree standing on the banks of the river. You can see the reflection of that tree in the river, right? So the tree appears to you upside down. The root should typically be down, the stem should be up, but in this tree, the roots are up and the stems are down. Okay, it looks like an upside down tree. Just like that, this material world is also a perverted reflection of the actual spiritual world, and everything is upside down in this material world. For example, what is upside down? For example, the pure love that a jiva has for Krishna, right, manifests as lust in this world. The lust or the sexual attraction between a man and woman, right? That lust is basically the pure love that a jiva has for Krishna, right? And it is reflected as a perverted, in a perverted sense in this material world. Is that right? And so many other things that are perverted in this material world. Everything that is transcendental in the spiritual world gets very contaminated, gets very degraded when it comes to this material world. Everything becomes very impure. So it is a very upside down situation in this material world. And there is no real enjoyment. How there is no real enjoyment? Because the tree, the actual tree, you can climb the tree, you can get to the fruit and you can eat the fruit, right? But the reflection, if you try to climb and try to get that fruit, the mango fruit in the reflection, can you enjoy that fruit? No, however much you struggle in the water, you cannot enjoy that fruit on the or the flowers of that tree, which is just a reflection in the water, right? And what is the cause of that reflection? Can anybody answer here? Why is that reflection there? So there is a tree, it is being reflected in the water, and you're seeing the reflection. Why is that reflection there? What is the cause of that reflection? I think if there was no water, there will be no reflection, right? From my this basic logic, if there is no water, there will be no reflection. So in these verses, Krishna says that water is actually our desires. Because we have these desires to enjoy the material world, the reflection exists. So the reflection of the tree exists on that water. If there was no water, there will be no perverted tree, right? But now, because there are so many desires to enjoy separately from Krishna, there is so many desires for sense gratification and material world, that Krishna had to create this material world to fulfill those desires, right? So the desires exist, and that's why the material world exists. Just like the water exists, and that's why the reflection exists, right? So I'm just giving a very, very basic overview. I'm not going into the details of the tree. Krishna has actually given the details of the tree, what the roots represent, what the stem represents, what the twigs represent, what the leaves represent, what the fruits represent. Everything of the tree, Krishna has given detailed example. But we are just taking very quick overview of the whole chapter, that in the first couple verses, Krishna is comparing the tree, the material world, to this tree, which is a perverted reflection in the water of our desires. Okay. And so if we cut, so then in the next third and fourth verse, he will say, can you cut this tree? Because we have, the goal is to cut this tree. And how can you cut this tree? Okay. So he says the goal is to cut this tree by detachment from these desires and from this material world, by detachment from fruitive activities. If we detach ourselves from this material world, then we can cut this tree with the acts of detachment. He says in verses 3rd and 4th, okay, that you can separate yourself and you can get rid of this reflection and actually enjoy the real tree with the real fruits and flowers by cutting down these material desires, right? In a very beautiful example is given by our teachers that this material world is like a rented apartment. Okay, for example, we just went on a trip, right, and we stayed in a hotel there or in a resort there, right? Now, what is that resort our permanent home? We went to that hotel for like 5 days. Is that hotel our home, permanent home? No, right? But let's say I go there to that rented apartment or to that rented hotel and I start making changes there. I start changing their carpeting. I start painting their walls. I start decorating on their walls. I start breaking down things according to my needs, according to my desires. I start changing things in that resort. Will the resort owner be happy or will he kick me out of there? He will kick me out of there because I was supposed to live there for 5 days and leave, right? I was just supposed to do my time for 5 days and leave that resort, right? And I chose that resort according to my enjoyment tendency, like how much ever I wanted to enjoy those facilities I sought, and I booked it like that, right? I was not supposed to make any changes there. Similarly, this material world, it is compared to a rented apartment where you are supposed to come, do your time. Don't make a home here. Don't try to make a home here. This is not your permanent home. Your Krishna is saying in this chapter that your permanent home is my eternal abode. Okay, this home is very, very temporary. This is like a rented building. You're not supposed to do too much here. You just do what you came here to do that and leave. Okay. So it is foolishness. He calls those people Vimura that are trying to make this temporary house their permanent home. Okay. You have been given permission. You have been allotted a certain amount of time. You do that time and then you leave. But what are you doing? You are wasting so much time. You are wasting so much resources in making this temporary house your home. You start working so hard. You start doing a job where you are, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the night. You are working, right? So much hard work you are doing in this temporary situation. So much energy you are wasting. So Krishna says, be very careful about how much hard work you put in this world for money, for property. What is the goal? Right, to make this temporary house your home is not the goal. Okay, so in this chapter is very clear, this is a temporary situation. This is a reflection of your eternal home, which you need to cut down. Actually detach yourself from this world. Don't get entangled more in it by working too hard here, by making too much property here, by making too much connections here, by wasting too much energy here. No, remember, this is not your eternal home. Okay, work more towards your eternal home. Because what happens when the death comes, right? Death will take away all of this, right? So in this rented apartment, it is not possible to make a permanent home. In this regard, a very nice story comes. There was a king, very young king. He was not very old. He was 32 years old, and from the age of 16 to 32, he was very busy in collecting wealth and increasing his kingdom. He was conquering nearby kingdoms and defeating other enemies and whatnot. So he had amassed a lot of wealth and a lot of power and a lot of name and fame, whatnot, right? This king. Now, at age of 32, he developed some disease and he was told by his physicians that you will die in 5 days. Okay. So he started making arrangements for his death. So he told his ministers that when I die, when I actually leave my body, this is what I want. These are my requirements for my funeral. Okay. Number one, these are my dying wishes. Okay, number one, when you take my arthi, right, my doctors or my physicians should carry it, okay, on the streets of my kingdom. When you go towards the Shamshan, my doctors should carry it. That is my one wish. My second wish is that all the wealth, all the jewels, treasures that I've collected, I've conquered, put them all on the streets. सारी सड़कों पे बिछा दो उनको, सारी मनी, सारी जूल, सब कुछ, ओके, और उसके ऊपर से मेरी अर्थी जानी चाहिए, ओके, आई शुड गो, माय डेड बॉडी शुड गो on that, ठीक है, put them all on the street. That is my second wish. And my third wish is that when you're taking my body, my hands should be open and out for everybody to see. It shouldn't be in a fist, it should be open. Okay? And everyone should be able to see my open hands. So then minister got very curious. He said, okay, we'll fulfill all your three wishes when you die. But what is the significance of this? What are you trying to achieve here, accomplish here? So he shared with his minister that, I wasted my whole life conquering people, amassing all this wealth and defeating people, making enemies, whatnot, right? I did so much. I became so powerful. But with my death, at least I want to teach some lessons to my kingdom, to my citizens. What are those lessons? My doctors will carry my arthi, which means that I want to show that no matter how much wealth you have, you may have the best of physicians taking care of you, you may have all the best resources, but once your death comes, there is no escape from that. If the Lord has written your time, your time is up on this day, then your time is up on that day. Okay? Rakhe Krishna, Mare Kaun, Mare Krishna, Rakhe Kaun. So if Krishna wants to take you away, nobody can save you, not even your doctors. So I want to show this by my doctors taking it, that even though I had the best physicians in the world, they had the best talent, they had all the money I gave them, they could not save me. Okay? That is one lesson. By putting all the wealth on the streets, I want to show that you can't take any of these treasures any of this property, any of this money, any of this that you collected in your life. People are making so much bank balances, collecting so much money, right? Fighting over money and property with their family and with their friends and whatnot. That money, that treasures, the jewels, whatever you collect here in this material world, you will not take with you. That will all be left on the streets for other people to enjoy. So I want to leave that on the streets for my citizens to enjoy, to show that I could not take anything with me, even though I wasted my whole life collecting it. And number three, that my hands should be out and open for everyone to see. That we leave empty-handed. Okay? That in my hands there was nothing. I came empty-handed and I left empty-handed. So basically Krishna is saying that you create, slowly you detach yourself from this material world. Understand the temporary nature, destructible, perishable nature of this material world and how it is so temporary. Everything is so temporary here. Your body and all your connections with family, with friends, everything is very temporary. Understand that this is not your permanent home. And once you understand that this is just a perverted tree, just a reflection of the real home, real world, then you try to break that tree by detachment, right? And detachment happens slowly, as we understand. We are following this process of detachment now, right? By this process of Krishna consciousness, we are trying to detach ourselves, trying to engage in higher taste and slowly detaching from the lower taste of the material world, right? Can anybody give example of what we are doing to create detachment on our daily life, during our daily life? How are we creating detachment from this material world? Maybe kids can answer. What steps do you take to separate yourself from this material world on a daily basis, so we don't get more and more entangled in it? Yes, Vaidehi.
We do chanting, and we also try to understand that we are not the body, we are just the soul.
Yes, right? That was Avni's project. We are not this body, we are the soul, right? So yes, we chant so that we can develop more and more attraction to Krishna and Krishna's names. Krishna and his names are not different. So we are trying to develop attachment to our original father, right? What else did you say? And by understanding the knowledge, right? So like you're reading Bhagavad Gita right now, reinforcing on a daily basis, we have to reinforce this. It's not something like you have to take medicine daily, right? This material world and attachment to this material world is like a disease. So you have to take medicine daily, right? It's not like somebody who has diabetes takes medicine once in a while. That is why I was saying read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita, recite a chapter of Bhagavad Gita daily, recite the names of Krishna daily, eat prasadam daily, right? It's not something you do once a week or once a blue moon as a pious act. That's not going to cause detachment. We are very, very deeply conditioned souls. So to create detachment from material world, we have to take a daily dose, just like you eat daily, you shower daily, right? You change your clothes daily, right? You brush your teeth daily. Just like that, we have to take this medicine to detach ourselves from material world also daily. So chanting daily, nityam, right? Every day we have to do this. Yes, Anita Mataji is sharing.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I didn't hear the word kid. You asked for kid, and Vinita was telling me, why are you raising hand? Because she asked for the kids. So I can still share if that's okay.
Yes, Mataji, please.
So Mataji, for me, I just try to make my realization strong day by day that I have to connect myself with the source, our Supreme Father Krishna, more and more day by day, so that if my connection is getting stronger with our Supreme Father, rest of the other things will be taken care. So that's how I am like realizing nowadays.
Okay, very bold. So from what I understand, Mataji is saying that whatever she's learning, she's applying it. She is trying to create realizations every day. In everything, she's trying to see Krishna's presence, right? Whether it's good times, bad times, see Krishna's hand in it, right? Whether it's like you are on a vacation right now, still keep on chanting, right? Whether you are in comfortable situation of your home, still keep chanting. So no matter whether it, whatever, grihe thako, vane thako, sada hari bole thako, right? So everywhere try to see Krishna in every situation, try to realize Krishna. Okay, yeah, application of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so, and then various other things, right? By deity worship, by going to temples, by reading scriptures, by associating with devotees. And actually, association of devotees also should happen on a daily basis. I would highly encourage everybody. It is not something you just do once a month or once a week even. It is something that you should try to do daily basis because that is the only way to stay on this path of Krishna consciousness. So, in other words, Krishna says that try to detach yourself from material world and work hard for spiritual world, which is eternal, for my eternal kingdom, for me, the supreme person who lives in that eternal abode, right? So develop attachment and taste for that eternal situation. And then in verse 6, he tells us qualities of his eternal abode. Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanka na pavaka. That my abode does not need sun or moon or electricity or fire. It is a self-effulgent place. From having gone there, nobody ever comes back. Right? Yad gatuvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. That having gone there, nobody comes back. Right? So that eternal abode is mine, never returns back. It is said that in a spiritual world, every word is a song, every step is a dance. It is a completely opposite situation to this material world. This material world is dukkhalyam ashashvatam, anityam asukham lokam. Whereas over there, it is always not only sukh, there is anand, there is bliss, and there is knowledge, sat, and there is chit, right? Everything is eternal and peaceful, and you are in complete Krishna consciousness all the time. Not like here, where we are sometimes in Krishna consciousness, sometimes in material consciousness. Then in verse 7, Krishna says, so because you might think, okay, if this material world is such a poor condition and eternal world is self-effulgent abode of the Lord, why don't people want to go there? So Krishna says that in verse 7 that they are conditioned, they are suffering, they are attached to their senses and mind a lot. They are very deeply attached to their senses and mind, and that is why they are suffering in this material world. They are trapped in this material world. Okay, it's like the example given here in this world. What kind of happiness does one experience? Analogy that Prabhupada used to give is if you have a blade and on the blade you smear some honey and then you taste that honey from the edge of the blade. Tasting honey from the edge of the blade, what will happen? You'll get some taste of honey, but your tongue will also get cut, right? That is the kind of happiness we enjoy with our senses and mind in this material world. So you try to enjoy, people are very, very hard trying to enjoy in this material world, but ultimately that enjoyment just brings suffering here. And another example is given that जैसे कि किसी का सर लेके पानी में डाल दो, हाँ, he will suffer, right? He will be trapped, he will suffocate, and then you take him out. When you take him out, he'll suddenly feel relief, right? That relief is the happiness one enjoys in this material world. So absence of suffering in this material world is considered happiness. For example, if let's say you all had let's say you all had a big meal. Now if I try to give you something to eat, more to eat these 10 gulab jamuns, you can't eat, right? Because you're so full. It will seem like a misery to you. Oh my god, I can't eat this. But now if somebody is really hungry and you give them food to eat, then they will feel satiated and satisfied. They will feel happy, right? So why were they able to feel happy? Because they were experiencing a misery. So relief of misery in this world is basically happiness, right? So only a person who's suffering in this world will be able to experience happiness because he's feeling the relief. So that is the kind of happiness one enjoys in this material world, just a few minutes relief. And Krishna has given us those few minutes of relief and happiness. And that is why we stay entangled looking for that happiness all the time. There is just enough happiness in this world that it keeps us entangled. You remember that picture where the man is hanging from a tree and the drops of honey are falling on him, but bees are biting him, rats are at the bottom, snakes are there, right? You remember that picture? So there are so many problems, but he's focusing on those little drops of honey, and Krishna is standing there giving him hand that, come with me. But he's ignoring Krishna and he's just focusing on those drops of honey that drop every like 10 minutes, one drop comes. But he knows that every 10 minutes, one drop will come. So he's just enjoying, and that is the happiness. But there is so much misery in this world. So we need to get out of this material world, Krishna says. That is number 7. Everyone is struggling very hard due to his 6 senses and mind. And then in number 8 and 9 verse, he talks about the cycle of birth and death. Actually, let me show the screen. Is everybody following the flow? Krishna gave us the nature of this material world in the first few verses, compared it to the tree. Then he said that try to come to my eternal abode, right? Which is so beautiful and self-effulgent and eternal. Then he says, why are living entities trapped here? Because they are enjoying with their senses and mind and deeply conditioned there. And then he says that because of that enjoy tendency, because of those desires that they have, they keep going from one body to another. He takes one body and then quits that body and takes another. In this way, the jiva keeps circling in the cycle of birth and death, right? He keeps getting different types of ear, eyes, tongue, nose, sense of touch, all different, mind and sense objects he tries to enjoy. So because of his enjoy tendency, his various desires, he wants to enjoy in different planets and different species. So if I have an enjoy tendency, let's say, let me ask people, I want to let's say, I like to eat a lot. I have this tendency to eat a lot. I can never get satiated. I just, keep doing atyahar, overeating. What kind of yoni or planet, species or planet will I go to? Yes, Debbie.
You would be in the Earth planet, right? Because it's like the passionate, the Rajogun planet.
Okay. So yeah. Somebody who likes to eat a lot, that is a very so they may get like a body of elephant or something, right? Elephant eats I can't remember so many kilograms of on a day. So you will get an elephant a body of an elephant, or maybe some lower planet also, because those demonic people, they're able to eat a lot, right? They even eat humans and other species. So if you have meat eating tendency, you will become a carnivore animal, right? If you have a tendency to show your body, be naked a lot, some people do that, right? What kind of species would you become? Anybody can take a guess? Other than Vedi, Vedi has answered so many things. How about, let's say, Raina? Sheetal Mataji already knows everything. So, Raina, would you like to answer? Somebody likes to keep a very... Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be like either like a herbivore or something, or like an omnivore?
Okay, so my question was, they show off their body a lot. They don't cover themselves.
Like an animal, like someone who just like doesn't wear clothes.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, that may be right. What else? Vinita wants to answer.
Hare Krishna, I think it would be like a tree.
A tree, yeah. Typically, it may be right, Raina, I don't know, but tree is typically cited. That you could, because trees stand for ages and ages, millions of years showing off their body, right? So, so like that, right? Based on your desires, what kind of enjoy tendency you have. You like to enjoy meat, you like to enjoy with other opposite sex, you like to enjoy wealth, you like to do a lot of pious acts, you like to do a lot of charity, those resources you will get. So Krishna is very, very merciful. He'll give you those desires that that were unfulfilled, right? You're trying to fulfill those desires in this human life. Human body is not capable of fulfilling those desires properly. You cannot eat enough meat with this body. It's very hard to digest meat with human body. So he'll give you a proper body that is meant for eating meat and digesting meat properly, right? That makes only good sense. So in this way, Krishna says you will keep getting different bodies and you'll circle through different species and different planets, right? So taking another gross body, obtain different type of sense organs and mind. Then Krishna says from verse 10 that foolish people do not understand how he is a soul and how the soul quits the body and accepts another body and tries to enjoy under the control of three modes, right? A foolish person does not understand this concept. So I'll give you an example of foolishness. Okay, foolishness of how we are going through different bodies and different planets. I'll give you an example that I've heard. Imagine you're going in a flight, in a plane, and suddenly the plane, and you were going to, let's say, I was going to India, okay, and suddenly the plane is hijacked, and the hijacker says that, okay, I am taking the plane to London now. So my fellow passenger, and I'm like, oh my God, your plane is hijacked, we are going to London. But my fellow passenger is very happy. He says, oh, London, yay, I always wanted to go to London. Wow, let's go. I can't believe my good luck that I paid for India, but I'm getting to go to London. Is this intelligence or foolishness? Foolishness, right? Where is saying foolishness. So yes, because what is this in your control to go to London? No. Are you going out of control completely? Yes. Will they mistreat you? Yes. Will you suffer? Yes. Right? Is this your destination? No. So this is very, very, very foolish. And then the hijacker says, okay, they touched to London. No, no, London is not the right place. Hijacker says, okay, let's now go to Dubai. And my fellow person, wow, I can't believe my good luck. I wanted to go to India and I got to get into London and now I'm going to Dubai. 2 international trips in one flight. I paid only for that and I'm going to Dubai also now. So is this intelligence? No, out of control, you're spinning in different directions, you're going to different species and different planets. No control over anything. Huh? You know, instead of going home where you need to go, you're just going wherever the hijacker is taking you. So just like that, the Maya, the kidnapper has kidnapped you, hijacked you. And the kidnapped person is enjoying, kidnapped person is thinking, oh, okay, fine, I'll get food here, but no, they'll mistreat you. You're not with your father. The kidnapped kid is having fun. But that is if you went back to your father and mother, wouldn't they give you all the resources, all the money, all the food and clothe you, medicine, give you education, everything. But now you're stuck with the kidnapper who will mistreat you mostly and then give you some food here and there and some clothes here and there. So is this a symptom of a foolish person or intelligent person to be happy when they're kidnapped? So that is the foolishness, right? So Krishna calls them foolish in this 10th verse. He says that is a foolish person. You might have heard of the term Mayaya Aprihit Jnana. Remember in 7th chapter there was a verse, um, Maya aprihit jnana. Aprihit, he uses that aprihit word a lot. There, अपहरण means kidnap होना. जिनको माया ने किडनैप कर लिया है, माया अपहृत ज्ञाना. So they kidnap you and then you're enjoying in that situation, in that temporary miserable situation. So Krishna is making that very clear that that kind of situation of circulating in different species, going through birth and death, accepting different bodies is a very miserable situation, and foolish people don't understand that this is miserable. And then in 11th verse he says, but the intelligent people, the self-realized soul understand that, see, the endeavoring transcendentalists, they can see all this clearly. They can see what is going on. They see that this material world is temporary. We were not supposed to be here. We need to go to the eternal abode. That we are accepting bodies under the control of Maya. We are in the control of three modes of material nature. They see all this. And then they try to go back to Krishna. Then in the next few verses, Krishna talks about his splendor, that how he's the father. He's giving us the sambandh gyan. He's giving us the knowledge about our relationship with him. That this whole, I can light up this whole world because I'm the splendor of the sun. I'm the splendor of the fire. I'm the splendor of the moon. All these planets are orbiting because of my energy. So this law of gravity is saying that I am. I supply the juice, the somras that comes from moon that nourishes the vegetables. So the nourishment that we get from the vegetables, that comes from Krishna. He says, I become the moon and supply the juice of life to all vegetables. He says, I am the fire of digestion in the body of the living beings. Right? He's the Jatharagni, right? He's the fire of digestion. And he's the air of our life. He's the pran. He's the life air that flows through us, incoming and outgoing. So he's giving us the knowledge about his supremacy, how he's the supreme person, how he can take care of everything if we just come back to him. And then he says this very important verse in 15, that the Vedas are supposed to give us all this knowledge, that I am the knowledge to be had by the Vedas. But actually what people do, people use Vedas even for their entanglement. People use Vedas to just do pious acts, karma kand activities, and they get even more entangled. Vedas are supposed to free you from this material world. Vedas are supposed to teach you about Krishna. With Vedas, you should understand your relationship with Krishna and develop hankering to go back to him. But people are misusing Vedas to even get more entangled in this material world. So he makes it very clear here that I am the knowledge of the Vedas. I am the summary, the conclusion of the Vedas. And I am the compiler of the Vedas. By all the Vedic knowledge, I am to be known. Okay? He says very clearly that I am to be known by all this Vedic knowledge. So don't be deviated by various sections of Vedas that talk about demigod worship, that talk about karma kand, that talk about other rituals, sacrifices, ceremonies, many things Vedas talk about. But they talk to people of different consciousness. But somebody who's a devotee who wants to go back to Krishna, they understand that the goal of Vedas is to just go back to Krishna. He says, I am to be known by all the Vedas. So, I am the knower of the Vedas, I am the compiler, and I am known by all the Vedas. And I am seated in everyone's heart, giving remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. We'll discuss this details of this verse when we come to it, but I'm just giving a flow of this chapter today. So then, so basically Krishna has established here that he's our maintainer, he's our father, he's nourishing everything, right? He's the law of gravity, he's the fire of digestion, he's the life air, everything. Then in verse 15, he's also talked about how he gives our mind intelligence, remembrance, knowledge, forgetfulness, everything, right? So he nourishes not only our gross body, he's nourishing also our subtle body, the intelligence, ego, and the mind also. Then in verse 16, he talks about that there are two types of beings. The jivas, which can be fallible or infallible. Fallible meaning the jivas that are trapped in this material world. Infallible jivas are those that are in the spiritual world. So, and then he says, but I am, besides these two, I am none of these. I am not a jiva. I am not fallible or infallible. I am transcendental. I am the supreme person, the imperishable Lord. And I am the maintainer of the three worlds, okay, where these jivas live. So, fallible jiva basically means the conditioned souls. Infallible jiva means the liberated souls, the ones that are in the spiritual world. They are the infallible jivas. But Krishna says, I am neither of those. I am the imperishable Lord. Okay, I am transcendental, neither beyond both fallible and infallible. I am the greatest. So now he is very firmly describing his supremacy, that I am the greatest. I am to be celebrated by all the knowledge, by all the acharyas, by all the Paramhamsa devotees, right? That I'm sung by the Vedas. I'm the most opulent, right? Samast Gun Gana Dhama, right? That is Krishna, possessor of all opulences, all vibhutis. And then in the last two verses, Krishna basically says that whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whoever understands this knowledge that this material world is temporary, that you have to come to the spiritual world which is eternal, what are the qualities of the Supreme Person that resides in that spiritual world, and what are the qualities of the spiritual world itself. That person will then try to engage in my devotional service and try to free himself from the cycle of birth and death. Right? So he will engage himself in full devotional service to me. And this is the most confidential part of Vedic scriptures. Why? Because Vedic scriptures deal with all jivas. But the most confidential part is meant for the jivas of highest consciousness, the Vaishnavas, the Krishna devotees, who are trying to understand the mood of Krishna, that he just wants to us to get united with him, right? So then he says, whoever understands this will become wise and his endeavors will know perfection. Perfection meaning achieving Krishna. So basically you have to choose wisely, right? At every moment there is a choice. So become wise and make those choices. Choose wisely. Either you have the choice to just fulfill material desires, fulfill sense gratification and stay in this world, or Krishna says you have a choice to engage in devotional service, achieve perfection and come back to this eternal abode of mind and enjoy with the supreme maintainer, the supreme person, Purushottam Bhagwan, right? That is the summary of this chapter. Very quickly, just to give some taste in this chapter, how the flow of this chapter goes. Hope that is clear. Please share or ask any questions if you have. Was this helpful just to get the flow of from first verse to the last verse? Yeah. So what important topics did Krishna talk about starting from verse 1? Maybe 3 or 4 important topics Krishna is talking about, right? So who can mention quickly? Yes, Lily.
He talked about how this material world is just a reflection of the spiritual world. And it reminded me when Shivalas Prabhu talked about it in our kids class. He said how in the spiritual world, devotional service is the very top, but in the reflection, it's at the very bottom.
Yeah, exactly. In this spiritual world, being servant is the highest position one can get. It is not easy to become servant of the Lord. In material world, being a servant is considered so lowly. Acha, ye servant hai, being the servant of somebody is considered so lowly. But in spiritual world, being a servant is the highest position. So that tells you how perverted this material world is. So many other, we'll talk about it in detail. But yes, very perfect. So first he tells us about the condition of this material world, which is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, like a tree reflected in the water. And the water being our desires creates this reflection. If there were no desires to enjoy, then to enjoy separately from Krishna, then there will be no water and no tree, right? So this material world won't exist. But material world eternally exists actually, right? Eternally, he says, avyayam. We'll discuss the details, but in that verse he says avyayam. So someone might say material world is avyayam. No, avyayam basically means the desires of jiva don't stop. So the material world annihilates itself, but then has to keep getting created. Creation and annihilation keeps going on because the jiva's desires don't stop, right? It's like a light. You wake up every morning, you turn on the light, but then when you go to bed, you turn off the light. But the light always can be turned on. So in this way, material world is always existing, avyayam, because of the desires of the jiva. The material world is needed for their reformation, right? What else? So he told us about material world, then he told us about the next few verses. Yes, Mataji.
To speak about the spiritual world, how it is self-effulgent,
Yeah, how it is self-effulgent. And how once we go there, nobody comes back, right? It is eternal. And then what else he talks about? You can look at, let me open the verses. So then he talks about how jivas are trapped here in this material world, how we are struggling with our mind and senses very hard in this material world. Prakriti sthani karshati, right? With all our six senses, mind being one of them, jivas are struggling in this material world so hard. And then they keep getting different bodies one after another, right? The cycle of birth and death he talks about. And then he talks about foolish people don't understand this, but intelligent people understand this. And this is the Purushottam aspect of his knowledge, where he's trying to establish that he's the supreme maintainer. He's the one that maintains us. He's our father. He nourishes us. Like sometimes people say, so if I were to ask you, where does milk come from? From grocery store, right? But in grocery store, where does milk come from? Huh? Quickly. From Goshala? From cows? Yes, from cows. And how does cow get the milk? How does cow get the milk?
They eat the grass.
By eating grass. ये बोला आपने ना? Right. They eat, by eating grass, they get the milk. Where does the grass come from?
Earth.
From the somras.
From the earth or from somras, from the nourishment. So where does the earth come from? Where does the somras come from?
Krishna.
Right. So in the end, ultimately everything comes from Krishna, right? Earth gets the water, rainwater. Rainwater, someone might say, where does the rainwater come from? From oceans, right? But oceans, the water never gets depleted. So much rain happens every year. How does ocean get so much water, right? Who made this cycle? The cycle of evaporation and all this, right? So Krishna. So ultimately, everything can be traced back to the Lord, right? Like one time, somebody came to Prabhupada. He was a big cement merchant. He had a big cement factory, and it was named after his family. उसके जो भी फैमिली का नाम होगा, जैसे आजकल लोग रखते हैं ना, बंसल देस, अग्रवाल देस, चोपड़ा देस, right? Whatever after their family they had named. So he came to give donation to Prabhupada for his temple. And Prabhupada was talking to him. He said, oh, we are very big, wealthy merchants. We have a lot of cement and our family, this all belongs to our family. So Krishna said, you are lying. Prabhupada said, you are lying. This does not belong to your family. So he said, no, this has our name, Agarwal Cements, whatever it is. I'm just making it up, but whatever cements, this belongs to our family, Prabhupada. We didn't steal from anybody. We are very pious people. We are very honest, hardworking people. This belongs to my family. For generations, we've been doing this work in cement. So Prabhupada, yes, I understand, but where do you think that cement that you make comes from? He said, that comes from mountains. And then he started telling about all the mountains they go to get the cement. So he said, and then who made the mountains? He said, Krishna made the mountain, or Lord makes the mountains. He said, yes. So if Lord makes the mountains, Lord made all the cement and gave you the power, and he empowered you to use it in the service of the jivas. So this is not your family. It may be your family business, but without Krishna, it's not possible. The family business is not possible. So why don't you rename your Agarwal cements to Govinda cements? Give everything in service of Krishna. Remember Krishna in everything. So rename it and call it Govinda cement. That man renamed it to Govinda cements. So, so just because we have this tendency to think that we are the proprietor of everything, always forgetting that actually Krishna is the proprietor. He just lends us some things for the duration of our life, and our life is like bubbles in water. When demigods look at jivas look like bubbles to them. They come and go. Just like an ant may look like to us, or a fruit fly, right? So small their life is. Just like that, our life looks like to Brahmaji and other demigods. And then their life to Narayana is like bubbles also. So we should remember that it is very short, and we have to get out of this material world, make use of this human life. Human life is very, very precious, right? And so more and more spiritual activities and trying to slowly detach ourselves from the materialize. That is the goal of this process. Okay, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for listening and joining in the discussion. Please ask any questions. We will take these verses in more detail. But I think having had this overview, it will be easier, faster to go through when we do the details. Any questions? Rekha Mataji, Hema Mataji, Rana.
I think it's a very good idea to in the starting to go over the verses, and then in the end also you do a quiz and something like that, similar, where you kind of summarize and we kind of go over all of it again. It kind of makes the theory more rooted. So definitely the more repetitions before, after are always helpful.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And especially this is a smaller chapter, I thought it'd be okay to do a complete overview of one chapter in one go. Okay, anybody else wants to share anything? Rekha Mataji, do you have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you
No,
for.
I'm good. Thank you.
Mataji, please keep listening. It may seem very intricate or difficult in the beginning, but it becomes easier. The harder thing is to apply the knowledge, not the knowledge itself is not hard. The harder thing is the application of the knowledge. So like we were talking about on daily basis. Mataji, if you can start chanting. I don't know if we talked about it, the chanting on the holy.
Yeah, I got the mala, but I think it's not 108. It's more than 108.
Okay.
The beats.
Really? Okay.
But I keep playing the Hare Krishna Hare Rama song on YouTube, and then I chant with it. There's 108 times.
Okay. Yes,
I do
Mataji.
with that.
Yes, that will be good. Okay, let me hold on. Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll discuss from 15.1 next time, more details. We will.